Good evening, everybody, to the folks in the gallery and the folks watching at home and those watching later on YouTube. Welcome to this 2022-2026 term's first official do business for the town meeting. And as trial by fire dictates, we had an in-camera session earlier. We started at 4 o'clock and got through a bunch of heavy matters, which we have some direction to confirm in a moment. And I just want to welcome everybody to our first meeting and bear with us a bit. This is a little new format for us for a new council. So if we trip up, stumble, or otherwise look silly, it's because we're new, and I won't be able to use that excuse for more than a month. We'll give it a month. Once 2023 kicks in, we'll be a veteran council with 1 or 2 meetings under our belt. So that being said, I'd like to start with land acknowledgement, and I will hand that over to our deputy mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. The town of Midland recognizes that it is located on land which is the traditional and treaty territory of the Anishinaabe people, now known as the Chippewa Tri-Council, comprised of Bosley First Nation, Rama First Nation, and the Georgina Island First Nation. This territory is within the pre-confederation of Treaty 5 and Treaty 16, and included within the Williams Treaties of 1923. The town of Midland recognizes that it is located on land which is the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat and the historic homelands of the Métis, and that our town is home to a large and diverse community of Indigenous people.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. He has a lot of heavy lifting on tonight's agenda in the committee of the whole, and he's losing his voice already. So well, I may have to help him out. All right, we traditionally take a moment of silent reflection. It's your minute to silently reflect on anything that matters to you as we head into this council session this evening. Thank you very much, Council. So with that being said, agenda item number 5 is our motion to rise to open session. And this is moved by Deputy Mayor Cotton, seconded by Councillor Downer. The council receive as information and confirm the directions as outlined in the verbal report and update provided by the town solicitor and executive director of planning, building and bylaw at the closed meeting session of council held today, December 7th, 2022, regarding the legal update respecting Bayport developments. We don't traditionally have discussion on these matters because we did that in camera. So I'll ask for a show of hands. All those in favor? We're confirming the direction that we gave to staff in camera for the Bayport developments. So all those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Oh. Oops. Let the first faux pas be mine. I am to ask for any declarations of conflict of interest as they relate to open session matters. We did ask for this before we went into close, but is there any declarations of conflict of interest as it relates to open session matters? Seeing none. Our next motion, moved by Councillor Meredith, seconded by Councillor East. The council receive as information and confirm the directions as outlined in the verbal report and update provided by the town solicitor and manager of planning at the closed meeting session of council held today, December 7th, 2022, with respect to Midland Bay Estates. All in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. And furthermore, Moved by Councillor Bald, seconded by Councillor Cotton, that council receive as information and confirm the directions as outlined in the verbal report provided by the town solicitor and manager of planning at the closed meeting session of council held December 7th, 2022, with respect to an appeal to a minor variance application A7-/2022 for 8846 County Road 93. All those in favor of that? Any opposed? The motion's carried. Next, moved by Councillor Ball, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that council receives as information and confirm the directions as outlined in the verbal report provided by the manager of human resources at the closed meeting session of council held December 7th, 2022, with respects to the 2017 to 2022 Midland Professional Firefighter Association collective bargaining. All those in favor? Opposed? None? Carried. Next, moved by Councillor Downer, seconded by Councillor Meredith, that council receive as information and confirmation the directions as outlined in the verbal report provided by the manager of human resources at the closed session meeting of council held December 7th, 2022, with respect to the 2022 to 2024 Midland Professional Firefighter Association collective bargaining. All those in favor? Opposed? None. That motion's carried. All right, next I'd like to turn, now that we've got that housekeeping out of the way, I'd like to turn the floor over to the CAO for some announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to members of council and members of public who are in person and obviously watching online as well. I want to take a few moments to just acknowledge some very important contributions that have been made to the town from a couple people who have announced their retirement through you. Mr. Mayor, I would like Andy Campbell to make the first announcement, and then I'll follow up with the second
one. Your worship and members of council and in the audience, I'd like to congratulate Blair Hamlin on his retirement. Blair's sitting in the back row back there. Blair's retiring after 28 years at the town. He's been one of our roads operators, looking after our snow plows and looking after our street sweeping over the years. And I've really enjoyed working with Blair, his smiling face in the morning in the lunchroom, and his wise advice as to how we can do our job the best we can in operations. He's really been a real rock in the department. He's retiring and leaving us at the end of the month here. Blair's been not only working full-time for us over the years, he was also a volunteer firefighter for 25 years for the town. And that started way before he started working in our roads department. So he has been a fixture for a long time. But also his family has been. His grandfather and his cousins have been employees of the town over the years. And the Hamlin name is one of our founding families in the community. So Blair continued the tradition with his family of supporting all the residents here with their hard work. And just tonight, I just wish to thank you for your dedication to us. And I wish you the best in your retirement, Blair. Thank you.
Congratulations, Blair. It was great to connect with you at our staff event, and certainly wish you all the best in your retirement. And thank you for your dedicated service to the town, to you and your family. The second announcement, the final one we'll make tonight, is someone I think everyone knows, certainly within Midland, but across North Simcoe, Chief Paul Ryan, who has been our chief for 7 years at the town of Midland in conjunction with the town of Penetanguishene. Is going to be retiring at the end of the year. And sorry to see Paul go, although he is a Montreal Canadian fan. I'm not sorry to not get those emails from him. But Paul has been, Chief Ryan has been just a tremendous asset to this town for many, many years, and to North Simcoe. He's very progressive in terms of of the way he manages fire services. That's been acknowledged by the county services, who did a study on fire services and did commend Midland Penetanguishene for the shared model that we have and how progressive we are in that area. So certainly very, very committed to what he did. He started his career, I think in 1985 with the Township of Tiny. He did a range of positions there, including summer bylaw enforcement. So he started working with people right away, became a volunteer firefighter, moved into fire prevention and support, and was hired as a full-time deputy chief and then fire chief at the town of Penetanguishene. And as I said, for the past 7 years, has been a joint fire chief for both Penetanguishene and Midland. He's a leadership not only in fire, but he's also a very strong advocate throughout his career for things like mental health, and will certainly miss his sense of humor as well. So on behalf of the entire town of Midland, I know Penetanguishene will be making their own announcement, but we want to thank Paul and his family for all of the service that he's given to Midland and North Simcoe, and for his leadership that will continue to be felt in the fire services. So thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much. I recall fondly working under Chief Ryan in Tiny in my 7 years as a firefighter and Tiny as a volunteer. All right, next we have the approval of the agenda, item number 9. This is moved by Councillor East, seconded by Councillor Bald, that the contents of the regular council with closed session agenda for December 7, 2022 be approved as amended as follows, adding the following item under sections 10.4, all reports. That's report number 10412, CSR 2022-71, 2021 year-end report. And also adding the following item under section 17, reports and other items withdrawn from the consent agenda for council's consideration, which does include presentations by consultants regarding a report under consideration. 17.2 CSR 2022-74, a temporary extension joint Ontario Building Code, OBC Building Code Act, BCA, service agreement between Penetanguishene and Midland. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Next, we have the consent agenda, which for those of you who follow our agendas, you'll see there are a copious quantity of reports on it. Of the reports that were submitted, one has been pulled, which is how our council wants to, speak to a matter beyond just making reference to it. Perhaps there's questions of staff or an individual vote that will take place on it. So the consent agenda items, just for those following along, contain the minutes of our previous meetings, including one from the 9th of November before this council took office. So there are 3 returning members, of myself inclusive, that can speak to the contents of that minutes and those minutes. There's also the council information packages, which is correspondence that come to council, kind of like our group council mailbox. Things get scanned and sent to us, and they're also posted on the website for review, as well as the various reports, which include the 2023 council schedule, which feels much like what we have been doing. There's the sale of land on County Road 93. And there's a Midland Avenue encroachment agreement. There is quite an in-depth report for those of you who follow planning matters involving the response and implementation plan since the provincial government has enacted Bill 109 and Bill 13. There is also a really interesting report on election removal of barriers, as well as the participation summary, and an opportunity for naming, basically selling or leasing the naming rights for our Ontario's Best Butter Tart Festival. So if those are things, there's also the interim tax levy bylaw, which is effectively a bridge until we set the tax rate for 2023. There's a report on OMER's non-full-time expansion. So that's our non-full-time members would have the option to get into the OMERS plan. Our annual development charge report, which is quite telling, shows a summary of where our development charge reserves are at. And the aforementioned one, the newly added one, our year-end report for 2021. So all of those are included in our consent agenda. And if you're interested in more detail, they are all found online, attached to our online agenda on Civic Web. Do any councillors have any comments that they'd like to add about the consent agenda items before we make the motion to pass them all at once? Councillor McDonald.
Perhaps you mentioned it and I didn't hear. Your Honor, did you mention that I asked for one to be pulled? And okay, you skipped over that one. Thank you. We'll get used to it.
Not a problem. That's the one on the snowmobile challenge. And we'll deal with that during the committee of the whole section. Any other comments or questions about the consent agenda before we pass it? All right, moved by Councillor Prost, seconded by Councillor Meredith, that the items and related recommendations contained within the December 7th, 2022 consent agenda as consent items, having been considered by council, be adopted with the exception of 10.4.3 CSR 2022-62 Sled Heads for Kids Guinness World Records event, which will be considered under section 17 reports and other items withdrawn from consent agenda for council's consideration, which may include presentations by consultants regarding a report under consideration. That being said, all those in favor? Opposed? None. That is carried. We have no correspondence for consideration. And council minutes for adoption. No, we did that one already. Very good. Yeah, check. Next, we're going to head into our part where Jack gets to talk. Deputy Mayor Cotton. So we'll have a motion here to resolve into the committee of the whole. So this is moved by Councillor McDonald, seconded by Councillor Ball. The committee resolve into the committee of the whole. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Deputy Mayor, you have the chair.
Thank you, Your Worship. I hope I don't lose my voice, but I think it's starting to lose it. But we'll get through this. Thank you very much. And first of all, welcome to the committee of the whole. The beginning, I just realized there's going to be 47 more, so we're just at the beginning with number one. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge council here to the committee of the whole, as well as thanking the audience and the viewers to listen and just understand the basics of what our town is all about and how we move forward in the next 4 years. So thank you very much for that opportunity. We're going to begin with the committee of the whole with the public meeting. And I'm going to read to you part of the explanation of this process. First of all, I would like to call the public meeting to order. The public meeting is being held under the Planning Act to consider a proposed amendment to the town's official plan respecting all lands within the town of Midland. In accordance with the Planning Act, if a person does not make an oral submission at the public meeting or make written submission before the bylaw is passed or an approval given, you will be entitled to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and you may not be added as a party to a hearing on an appeal to the OLT unless in the option of the tribunal there are reasonable grounds to do so. The purpose of this public meeting is to hear from residents and stakeholders and to seek clarity on the proposal. Council is not making a decision or taking a position. Staff will report back in the future with a recommendation of the report. This is your opportunity to speak, and council will encourage you to do so. As for council, this is the public opportunity to speak, and we're here to listen. And so I would like to asked our Director of Planning, Building Bylaw to introduce the proposal, confirm notification, and to note any correspondence received. I call upon our planning executive director, Mr. Farr. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, members of the public. My name is Adam Farr. I'm the Executive Director of Planning, Building, and Bylaw with the town of Midland. If we could bring a presentation up. So this is a statutory public meeting for a proposed amendment to the town's official plan that'll apply across the town of Midland. Next slide, please. Notice of this public meeting was provided on November 17th, 2017. November 17, 2022. In the Midland Mirror, a town webpage was created to provide information on the proposed official plan amendment and other related information. Notice of this meeting was sent to a list of development industry stakeholders. Town staff prepared 2 reports, one for this public meeting, one that provides a broader, more detailed overview of proposed process changes, bylaw revisions, and further explanatory details. The town solicitor and service delivery review consultants retained by the town were involved in both. To date, the town has received 8, and we may now be at 10 comments, and continues to receive comments from commenting agencies and area developers of their agents. And I can say professionally, I'm delighted at the response that we received. These and other comments will be gathered and reviewed in considering the proposed OPA. Written comments are requested by December 22nd, 2022 for consideration on the following recommendation report. Next slide, please. For the public and for people who are not as familiar with the official plan as some, the official plan is the town's overarching guide to the town's community planning vision. This is a living document that is intended to be amended from time to time. It's made up of text and maps. The maps identify where certain policies apply across the town, and the text describes what those policies mean. There are also policies of an administrative and procedural nature, among other things. The official plan can be found at the web page that's posted on the screen, and this presentation will be made available after this evening's proceedings, and people can visit that page at their leisure. The proposed official plan amendments are also found at that page. Next slide, please. As people may know, the province of Ontario has been engaged in re-engineering the planning and municipal governance framework in Ontario. A number of bills have been passed and other bills are pending. Included among those bills are Bill 109, the More Homes for Everyone Act, and Bill 13, Supporting People and Businesses Act. And those will be the subject of some discussion here. And they're also one of the forces in driving the official plan amendment. The proposed official plan changes are triggered by this change in the system. OPA 1 has been drafted in response to Bill 13 and Bill 109, and it's also been drafted in consideration of recommendations of the service delivery review of the town's development approvals function, which is underway at the same time. Next slide, please. Bill 13 is a bill that allows council to delegate the authority to pass zoning bylaws that are of a minor nature, where official plan policies have been adopted, enabling them to do so, and delegating that authority to council or staff. The intent is to speed up the approvals process for minor bylaws. Bill 109, next slide, please, has made several changes to the planning process, the most noteworthy of which would be a requirement that there be a mandatory return of planning fees for specific applications according to a specific time frame effective January 1, 2023. There's a possible delay to July 1, 2023 of that requirement. However, other pieces of that legislation are already in effect. Site plan approval timeframes have been extended from 30 to 60 days effective April 14, 2022. Applications for site plan approval are subject to complete application review, but require related official plan policies. Municipalities are required to assign a municipal official to act as the approval authority for site plan approvals effective July 1, 2022. And as indicated earlier, concurrent with these changes, the town has been undertaking a service delivery review of development approvals function. Next slide, please. The town's proposed official plan amendment. My apologies. Could you go back the one slide? Go back. Possible. They're going forward. If you could go. Sorry about that. I'll just cut to the chase. The town's already responded to a number of the requirements in the legislation. We have policies in our official plan that require complete applications for site plan, and municipal officials have been delegated the authority to approve site plan. Thank you very much, and apologies for that. Sorry about that, Sarah. Next slide, please. The town's proposed official plan amendment proposes to respond further with proposed policies delegating to staff the authority to approve holding bylaw removal and amendments to holding bylaws, as well as approving bylaws for temporary use and extensions of temporary uses. Public meetings are still required where applicable, but the director of planning or designate would have the authority to pass the bylaw. Also, contemplated in the proposed amendments are changes to pre-consultation policies, complete application policies, the list of required studies, and various policies are clarified along with the connection between policy direction and implementation. Next slide, please. A number of process changes are being considered that complement the proposed OPA. These include more detailed pre-consultation review, complete application reviews, faster decisions on development applications, conditional site plan approvals, and increased use of the holding provision to help achieve successful zoning bylaw amendments. Next slide, please. Several bylaw updates are also being considered. These do not require a statutory meeting. It's only the OPA that requires the statutory meeting, but these have been posted to the town's website for review and comment. They include the pre-consultation bylaw, delegated authorities bylaw, the site plan control bylaw is under review, will be posted as soon as it's available, and we anticipate further changes to the fee bylaw. Additional funding and resources will be required to achieve targeted results. Again, on this page, you can see the documents are posted on the town's webpage. If you Google search official plan Midland, you'll arrive at that page. You scroll down and you'll see the details of the amendment. Next slide, please. The targeted outcomes of this exercise are greater clarity in process, faster decisions, more complete applications, fewer appeals for non-decision, better projects and better project management, and less reliance on taxpayer support for administering the town's development approval function. These outcomes are going to be achieved through a partnership with the development industry and applicants. The town, like I said earlier, is very excited to have seen the response that we received to our request for comments. We're going to be reviewing those in detail as we consider the OPA and returning to council with a recommendation report. Next slide, please. So that's exactly what we're going to do after hearing from the public throughout the commenting period. We're going to review the comments and consider them in the context of any changes that might be appropriate for the OPA. We're asking people to provide written comment before December 22nd to be considered in the recommendation report. And we'll be providing recommendations on the OPA in the new year. We're also looking for any comments on the proposed other bylaws, and we will be providing recommendations on those, likely at the same time as the OPA is considered. and we'll also be providing recommendations regarding funding and resources. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time. Look forward to hearing from the public this evening and seeing those written comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farr. Your presentation was well received on the fact that the official plan is an important document for the town, and that any changes that occur will impact the town and hopefully improve the development as we progress over the years. So thank you for your presentation. I will now ask for the comments from the public. I would ask that you state your name and address for the record. Is there anybody from the audience that would like to speak to this? Yes, sir. Please approach the mic and state your name and address. Thank you. And we have just roughly about 5 minutes for to do your presentation. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Dan McLaughlin. I reside at 165 Griffin Street in Midland. Good evening, Mayor Gordon, Deputy Mayor Compton, Council, members of staff. I'm a partner in with my brother-in-law, Glenn Walker, and Walker's Electric. I think many of the members of council and the community know of Walker's Electric. It was founded by my wife and brother-in-law's grandfather in 1935. We have been members of the community for 87 years now. As a participant in the construction industry supply chain, we are supportive of responsible development. We've all seen and heard and talked about the expensive housing that exists in Midland these days. Trying to buy a house or rent a house, how expensive it's become. And I've heard people talk about how landlords are to blame for high rents. The fact is that high rents are a function of supply and demands. It's economics. Developers will develop if given the opportunity to develop. Supply rests at the feet of government and their ability to support developers and getting applications through so that they can actually build. The issue here is the lack of supply and whether the bureaucracy, red tape, and lengthy approval processes, the punishing development charges and taxes are what often stands in the way of bringing developers to the community. The official plan amendments that have been proposed actually, in my opinion, make things much worse. And there are three main issues that I see. One is the expansion of the pre-consultation process, the powers that it concentrates in the planning department, and the increased expense and risk imposed on developers. The idea, as I understand of the pre-consultation process, is to prepare the development application so it is ready for formal review. But what the OP amendments do is create a shadow development process that has no oversight, accountability, or timelines. Since there's no application, I asked the council, how will they actually know what's going on in the pre-development and the pre-consultation process? If we look at section 7.3773, I don't know if you have the ability to put up the document. No, okay. Anyway, what it says, the director and their delegates may deem an application incomplete or refuse to accept the application in the absence of, and it lists a number of things. Section H, where an applicant is unable to demonstrate fulfillment of related requirements, all confirmation clearances and permits, and then finally, in section N, any other matters which have a bearing on the disposition of the subject application are not addressed to the satisfaction of the developer. So that means that the director of planning has the capacity, complete authority to deny an application. before even council even has the opportunity to know what's going on. So my question to the council is it your intention to provide the position of the Director of Planning with complete autonomy and discretion over the applications that are deemed complete? When considering a project, developers evaluate risk and reward. These official plan amendments substantially increase the amount of risk. Why is that? First, because so much more work and expense now must go into the pre-consultation phase. Secondly, because there's no recourse for the developer if the planning department disagrees. And they can disagree on the application incomplete for any reason, as I just pointed out. Third, there are additional costs that will be required before the formal planning review process. So I'd like to draw your attention, if I may, to, and you can review this later, section 7.1.1 is the pre-consultation phase. And what it says, before they're even allowed to make an application, there are 89 studies that may be required. 50 of them are new requirements that are being put into this document. So what's being asked of developers before they even make an application that they know to be complete or even have any input back from the council is they have to complete 89 studies, 50 of which are new. That imposes new risk and new expense onto developers. I'd like to ask this council to consider what the role of the planning department is. Is architectural design part of the mandate? More Homes Faster Act, the More Homes Faster Act specifically addresses removing architectural consideration from the planning process. But the town of Midland's official plan amendments actually go in the opposite direction and vest the control of architectural design in the planning department. That comes in section 4.3.1, where it says, ensure a high quality of standard of community design existing in future residential developments. And then the highlighted section, it says that it's all part of the pre-consultation process. So exterior design and samples must be provided. So the planning department can say what the exterior of a building is going to look like. And what if the developer disagrees? I'll just take an example. What if the developer says, I would like blue paint? The planning department says, no, I don't want blue paint. We want green paint. What can the developer do? And is that really the role of the planning department to determine architectural design? It's not what the government of Ontario is proposing in their new act. In section 3.1.12, buffering, where there's varying intensities of design of development of various forms. Section C says implementation of these policies will be required through the pre-consultation process. You have to look at the integrated barrier-free assisted. That's a great thing. All supportive of that, but is it at the appropriate place in the pre-consultation process? In the pre-consultation process, you have to look at crime prevention through environmental design. For those of you who haven't looked at that, you have to have your lighting and so on to help prevent theft and crime. Is that part of the pre-consultation process? One of the things I find really exemplifies the fact that this has become a shadow process in front of the formal review process has to do with public consultation. So it says in section 7.2, public involvement in consultation in the pre-consultation phase. So imagine if you're a developer, and you own a piece of property, and you would like to develop that property into something, and you want to go to get your neighbor's input into what you propose to do, and you go ask, and he says, so what are you applying for? Well, I don't know. I haven't actually made an application yet because I'm not allowed to make an application. And I don't know how high it's going to be, and I don't know how many units it's going to be, and I don't know how many parking spots there's going to be, and I don't know what the environmental landscape is going to look like, and I don't know what the exterior is going to look like because I haven't been actually able to make an application, but I'm supposed to get public input. Seems to me that public input should be part of a review process, all supportive of that, but at the right time, not in the pre-consultation phase.
Mr. McLaughlin, I'll give you just a few more minutes to wrap up.
Yep, sure, I'm almost done. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm just right at the end, actually. So I'd like to just actually, I'm in the concluding part right now. So Mayor Gordon, I'd just like to say that as a key part of your election platform was pausing the Midland Bay Landing Corporation development because you wanted to take consideration as to whether that was the right thing to do, get further public input. And that is an important development for the town of Midland, but it's only one development. The OPA amendments that are proposed here are far more reaching and long lasting and will affect every development that occurs in the future. So I ask the council, have a look at these issues and get fair and unbiased input from developers and an honest feedback so you can hear what the challenges are that they face. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin, for your presentation. We will take your comments and position to be reviewed by the planning department with a report from all the comments made tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your consideration.
Is there anybody else from the audience that'd like to speak? Yes, sir. Name and address. Thank you.
Yes. Through you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, Your Worship and members of council. My name is Kevin Bichard. I am a professional planner. I'm with IPS Consulting out of Barrie, but I've worked across the province. In fact, I was reacquainting myself with a number of your senior staff before the meeting. Certainly our firm is involved in development applications. Personally, I've been doing land development applications, environmental assessment applications for over 30 years. And while we're representing a number of clients in Midland and certainly in Simcoe County and beyond, my comments are really intended to support this effort that staff is bringing forward in terms of official plan amendment. And that's not to suggest I'm in complete agreement, so we can get to that in just a minute. But I wanted to recognize that Bill 109 is changing the game very, very dramatically across Ontario by imposing deadlines for processing of applications of 60 and 90 days, zoning bylaws and official plan amendments. And it's going to mean that we all have to do business very differently. And it's going to mean, as Mr. McLaughlin was indicating in his presentation, there's going to be a lot more upfront work in terms of providing the necessary studies that staff can rely on in order to make recommendations for support or not support the applications going forward. And so that means cost and it means time. But it also has to mean a balance of fairness and equity in the review and decision-making process. And I'm going to pick on a couple of conditions that I speak to and that I think are going to be difficult for this process to accept and move forward. So while I recognize the challenges that are being brought forward on Bill 109, and staff don't get to choose the timelines, we all have to work within them and do our best to have this process delivered. They are going to be restrictive, these guidelines, and sometimes they're going to appear regressive on both sides for councils and also for developers. But we have to work through this because that's the legislation. So the provisions that I'm concerned about and the only provisions that I intend to speak to tonight are under section 7.73, conditions L as in Larry, M as in Mary, N as in Nancy. And the reason that I'm focusing on those conditions, because I believe that they tip the balance that it should be maintained. And they tip the balance in a way that they deny the ability and rights of development community and developers in terms of managing their applications fairly. And I'm just going to read that in condition L, it says that all confirmations, clearances, permits, material, and information to be required to standards required through pre-consultation are not submitted. So effectively, if all of the permits and applications and conditions that could be imposed by a conservation authority, a municipality, a federal agency, a provincial agency, if they aren't provided upfront in advance as part of the pre-consultation process, the application will be deemed, could be deemed to be not complete. And so Mr. McLaughlin raised this point, and I'm echoing it, that there needs to be a different kind of balance here. Certainly, we all recognize, and I don't now want to speak for Mr. McLaughlin, we all recognize in the industry that these are new standards and a new level of effort is going to be required to provide substantial documentation and information to staff so that they can make an informed and reasonable decision. However, if with conditions L, M, and N, they impose a position where the planning director has the absolute authority to deem an application incomplete if, in his opinion, these conditions are not satisfied for confirmations, clearances, and permits in advance of the application. Typically, we would see those kinds of items produced very much later in the review and approval process, probably after nearly 2 years of review. Now it's being required to be considered upfront. So while the information is required, I think the more appropriate approach would be to frame conditions that would address the requirement for these items at a stage prior to issuance of an approval, like a building permit or a zone change or an application, not to require their complete, their receipt prior to the initiation of the application. So by deleting L, M, and N, that will remove those requirements. It will still require the development industry or applicants to come forward with complete applications, providing a full suite of information for review and consideration. It will also require the municipality to process the application within the timelines that are considered by Bill 109. And where they can't get absolute certainty of the issuance of a permit or certificate or clearance, then it would have to be framed as a condition of approval. And the developer then would go forward and achieve that approval, and the municipality would be able to achieve, presumably, its permits in that timeline. I'm just going to take a quick look at my notes here. The other aspect in the issuance, and I think Mr. McLaughlin touched on this, is the right to appeal. If I'm required under this official plan amendment to secure all of the certificates, permits, and approvals in advance of the application being considered complete and being processed, then I've effectively given up my right to challenge a municipal requirement or a conservation authority requirement or other agency review requirement, because I've effectively completed the review and come to terms. For my clients, I would like them to be in a position where they disagree, and if necessary, to appeal a condition as appropriate. That's their right in the legislation today, and I think this change in the official plan amendment is compromising that capability going forward. And I'm not sure that it would sustain a challenge on that basis. The other caution that I'm going to suggest as an expert in the process is that when we can't agree on the matters that are going to be considered as under section 7.7.3, and that's the deeming of a complete application. The next step for a developer, and I've got a circumstance, and I think you're aware of it, Mayor Gordon, where we have the position of appealing that disagreement to the OLT. So if we have a process that's imbalanced or offside, favoring disproportionately the municipality, then it's going to invite the applicant, the developer, to appeal that position to the OLT. So instead of resolving all of these issues with a complete application, we end up going to an OLT and delaying the process for 6 months, a year, or plus, while we argue over what a complete application is. So I think we need a different kind of balance in this official plan amendment. And I think we can achieve that by deleting L, M, and N. Thank you. That's my presentation. I'm quite happy to take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Charge, for your comments.
Right.
Thank you.
Good.
We have a question from our mayor.
My apologies.
That's okay. Your worship.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Just a question for you. In your experience, have you, first of all, I'm encouraging both of you guys to make sure you submit things in writing beyond what, the constraints of 5 to 8 minutes to talk to us. Please submit fulsome, detailed notes into our process. And for anyone watching at home, that runs until the 22nd of December.
Okay.
Well, my question for you is, in other municipalities' response, because we're all challenged with the same, the government is basically shaking the box of cats, and now we're all trying to deal with this unwrangly thing. In your experience, what are other municipalities doing around the requirements and the changes that are being sort of thrust upon us? And is our response, commensurate with those other municipalities, or are we doing something that seems to be different than other municipalities in your experience?
So I don't know that I have an Ontario-wide experience, so I don't want to convey that information to you. And I think you're quite right in recognizing this is a province-wide challenge. And I think where municipalities are going, and I've talked to some planning directors in large and urban municipalities, particularly the north part of the GTA and South Simcoe, where development growth pressures are intense, and development departments, planning departments are almost entirely funded on developer fees. I mean, this is part of the equation. How are you going to finance this? And I think the issue is the two solutions that I see are better communication of the requirements going into the application. And so terms of reference and clarity provided and all of that, and across the board standardization. Right now, what happens is every consultant approaches it perhaps a little bit differently, but we all know how to do a traffic study. We all understand what the elements of an environmental review are. But I think standardizing those, and that we'll see more of that in the industry, perhaps, and across municipalities. So I think that's one thing. So it's better information up front to respond. Then the second part of that is to deal with outstanding issues as conditions of development that have to be resolved by the developer. So the approval is understood to be achieved. And so if you're a developer or a financer guaranteeing a loan, you have an understanding of some securities that this application is going forward, but subject to resolving a flood line or resolving an environmental heritage issue or something along those lines. You're dealing with inputs into this process by people who are experienced and in their own disciplines quite capable. So I think the industry can work to resolve a lot of these issues and maybe get to 90% or 95% resolution of issues. And the rest will just have to sort through some sort of conditional approval process. And I think that's where it's going to have to go, because you have the other side is you can't defund a municipal government and expect it to achieve the kind of growth that is the province is asking for in terms of residential development. So it's somehow we've got to figure out how to square the circle without cutting off people's right to appeal as necessary, and still providing a quality of information. One of the laments that I have, and I'm taking a 35-year perspective in the industry, is that the resident coming up to a municipal counter and saying, I'd like to file a zone change, is almost shut out of the process because of cost. And so the people that municipalities are really empowered to serve, the people that elect them, could probably ill afford to file a very simple application in today's environment in most municipalities. And I don't have the solution for that, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, but that's the lament that I have. And it's the reality of the increased costs and the increased level of sophistication of application review and the timing that it takes to go through a process. And I could get into examples, but I don't think I need to. I think we all understand that issue. I'm sorry, no short answers from me. My apologies, Mr. Mayor.
No, that's fine. Questions like this are a gift because, you know, you can extend your time if you haven't made a point. So I was just genuinely curious because harmonizing policies, especially in North Simcoe, to me just makes so much sense. So we count and rely on the public to take these opportunities when we avail you of them, even though they're mandatory, to bring sage advice into the process that our staff can consider. So I thank you for coming tonight, both of you.
Okay, you're welcome. And thank you, staff, for putting this effort out.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask now to see if there's anybody else who would like to speak from the audience. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Bill Kernahan. I live on William Street in Midland, and tonight I'm standing before you as a resident and taxpayer. The province introduced Bill 109, the More Homes for Everybody Act, back in March, with the idea to reduce red tape, streamline the planning process, and expedite faster development approvals. Municipal planning is an art. It's not a science. Good planning comes through creativity and collaboration. The 2019 official plan is a framework for planning of the town of Midland. And it takes a permissive approach using language such as encourage, consider, promote, to support creativity and stimulate creativity. The authors recognized that by taking a different approach using prescriptive language, such as shall, require, means that you are actually stifling creativity. In our community, we'll end up with a less inspiring community, our community. This amendment does not reduce red tape. It appears to be driven by fear. Fear of the town having to partially refund application fees, not development charges, application fees, if a development isn't approved in 60 to 90 days as required by the legislation. By mandating a pre-consultation process before a formal application is made to the town, this part of the approvals process is intentionally removed from the 60 to 90 day approval process because it makes refunds less likely. But a new exhaustive list of complete application items for applicants is going to result in a process that is now more cumbersome and longer, not streamlined. 47 new reports, as part of the 90 or so already referred to, 47 new reports and studies compiled from a whole bunch of other municipalities are now being added to the list of items to be submitted by developers. And even more if the town thinks they need more. So there's no specific list of requirements, no checklist that a developer knows of what he needs to submit. Consider the cost of preparing, let's say, 10 significant reports at about $50,000 a piece and 10 minor reports at maybe $10,000 a piece. You're well in excess of $600,000 just for the reports, without thinking about all of the fees that are being spent for the planning and engineering for the development itself. This amendment contradicts the intent of the provincial bill to reduce red tape and will likely discourage new developments and new housing. Inclusion of the new onerous requirements is overreaching by the town and should be eliminated from this OPA. The proposed amendment is short-sighted. It's not taking a long view for the town. To be vibrant and sustainable, promoting good growth and attracting investment to Midland will be essential. So the question is, why is Midland rushing to implement these changes when the county of Simcoe and other municipalities are not, even though the deadline is looming? Why is Midland not joining the AMO and other municipalities in challenging Premier Ford on this bill, let alone the new Bill 23 about the Greenbelt? Why are we not doing that? Think carefully, Council, about this amendment. Does Council want to jeopardize the long-term viability of this town in exchange for short-term possibility of having to refund application fees? I'll leave you with that to think about. This, as somebody has said, affects the entire town. This is a framework for the entire town that is meant to be a framework for the planning of the future of Midland for at least the next 5 years. So it doesn't apply to one, it applies to all potential developments. And this approach has a long-term impact that this town may not want to pursue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kernan, for that. Are there any questions for Mr. Kernan? Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Kernan. Just today in the news, I was disappointed to read that the Premier had called out mayors in this province and basically said, get on board and stop whining. So I share your concerns, and language like that from the top really gives me pause for thought. So I appreciate you sharing your comments with us tonight. I, for one, continue to plan on whining a lot. I'm not content to sit down and shut up. This is development in our community, so critical, which is the foundation as to why Mr. Farr and his team are putting together responses. And I do appreciate the concerns, and especially around if there's perception of overreach. And this is something that this council will consider. So I appreciate tonight bringing this in, and please make sure you have written submissions.
I'll provide you.
Please get them in. That'll give staff a chance to really parse in contemplative detail all of the thoughts you'd like to share with us.
And if I might add one more point, which is very similar to what's already been raised. The town, this legislation requires that the town pass authority to staff. I think, like many other municipalities, the town might want to consider, council might want to consider, what properties are of great significance to the town in the long term, and consider whether you want to have input into what those properties' future might be. When you consider rezoning, official plan, and site plans, is it all to be left to the Director of Planning, or should council have some input into properties of great significance to the town? And perhaps it's only certain aspects of the properties, not necessarily all the details, but what are the big aspects that make a difference to this town in the long term? If those are important, then you should have a say as council. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else from the audience that would like to address council?
Just like to make a follow-up, if I may, to the question asked by Mayor Gordon.
If we give brief survey, we have virtual too, so I'll let you.
Mayor Gordon, you proposed a question to Mr. Bouchard. I just want to talk on that point for just a moment. Within the OPA amendment document, it talks about peer review and how the potential exists for developers to submit an application with a qualified contractor, consultant, whatever, to then have that document peer reviewed. This is a concept that's actually peer review is something that business operators use. I'm sure many of you know. As somebody who's operated for businesses for many years now, we set up KPIs, key performance indicators, for how your business is performing. And so I'd like to ask the council to consider in the planning department, what are the KPIs going to be going forward? Are you going to publish any of those KPIs? How many applications are on the table? How long do those applications take? So peer review is something that is common in business, and I suggest and submit to the council that it ought to be part of the process for planning where it's impacting the community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I think this is a little unusual because we're straying off the public meeting question, but just in your recognizing that valid critique, we are in fact in the middle of a third-party analysis of our planning processes right now. And as a matter of fact, we have interviews as counselors with that sort of audit team that's looking for efficiencies. So that point is well taken, and wish granted, it's actually already in play right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. If there are no further questions from the audience, I'm going to turn this over to some virtual questions from our community. And I'll ask our clerk to set this up. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We have Natalie Boudrum of WSP Canada. She would like to speak to council.
Ms. Boudreau, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Now turn my video on.
If you can state your name and address, thank you.
Okay. Good evening, Good evening, Mayor Gordon, Deputy Mayor Contlin, members of council and members of the public. My name is Natalie Boudram. I'm a registered professional planner in the province of Ontario and a project manager at WSP. I am speaking on behalf of Hanson Development Group, who owns lands at 16821 Highway 12, the town of Midland, which is 104 hectares of land. That's 258 acres on the north side of Highway 12, roughly between Highway 93 and King Street. In terms of their existing approvals, Hanson has official plan and zoning bylaw approval to support approximately 1,600 residential units in a master plan community. That is approximately 40% of growth expected for the town of Midland over the next 10 years. So that provides more homes in line with the province's mandate. The entire subdivision was originally granted land use approval and draft plan of subdivision approval in the 1990s. And through a series of red lines and extensions, we refer to the current draft plan approval, which has a lapsing date of October 2023, and subsequent registration of phase 1A that we received in 2019. Hanson has worked diligently with the town to ensure that its existing approvals remain and that they were appropriately transitioned into the Town of Midland official plan. So as I mentioned before, the development is to be built in phases. There was an approved phasing plan approved in 2018. There's also a set of community design guidelines specific to Hanson development that was approved in 2017. Each block is designed to be consistent with those approved community design guidelines and is subject to architectural control. You would notice block 6 along Highway 12 is under construction, mostly built. We've been trying to move forward with that subdivision. We have been trying to clear conditions for the subsequent phase, which is phase 1B, over the past 2 years. Over the past one and a half years, we've been trying to get approval for block 5, which is a residential block, and also block 2, which is subject to the phase 1B registration that we're trying to find clearance for. So those have been pending. We've been trying to get approval for a park block, a public park block. That's block 34 since 2019. And so in recent years, we've actually not had any approvals. And we're really happy to see that Bill 109 and Bill 13 requests are requiring expediting of planning application review. So on that note, we do see that the municipalities are expected to be required to return fees on planning applications after prescribed timelines based on application type. But we also note that the town of Midland is proposing to increase the pre-consultation process such that a significant review, the significant review that would have occurred previously that has held up our applications are planning to be occurring through pre-consultation, and that there are many opportunities for municipal staff to revisit and deliberate on development approval without defined parameters. For example, there's no limits on number of meetings, number of days, and the amount of additional information that may be required through the pre-consultation process. In our opinion, that only sets the stage for additional delay. So in terms of Hanson's primary concerns, Hanson does not want to see the existing approvals to be revisited. The approvals that we've been building off of in the last 25 years. We see a set of policy changes that increase the level of community design that is applied to a development, and it is not clear if approved design guidelines will be recognized or if they're subject to review. In our opinion, the approved Hanson community design guidelines already accomplish this and should not be revisited or modified. We also noticed that there is a number of policy modifications and also what refers to as Section 2 in the draft proposed delegated authorities bylaw that deals with the holding symbol conditions that could be amended by town staff. And we want to draw your attention that many of the Hanson blocks are subject to a hold, and it is based on site plan approval. But now, that would kind of open up the holding provisions to include things as urban design, cultural heritage, step backs, building location, separation, buffering, landscaping, building materials and architecture, servicing, natural heritage, and community development, community improvement. Those are the things that we've already received approval for and have been already defined through the existing approvals, including the community design guidelines and making sure that we had already defined the limit of development. So we do not agree with those particular policies that are proposed for the holding symbol. In addition, so there's a proposed policy modification to 7.4.2C that relates to exterior design. And we draw your attention again to the community design guidelines that had already accomplished looking at design thoroughly. And then there's also proposed policy 7.5.3, which will allow the town to provide public easement over private condominium blocks. The Hanson Development Guidelines already includes a trails master plan, which carefully contemplates pedestrian access through parks, parkettes, trails, blocks, street networks, etc. So this significant review, we've noticed that the process has been front-loaded to pre-consultation and that there are no defined limits. So that takes away, it goes opposite to what Bill 109 is intended to achieve. And in terms of pre-consultation itself, that could lead to a never-ending cycle of back and forth between the town of Midland and our client Hanson Development Group, as we've experienced with staff, which sets the stage for additional delay. In particular, in terms of examples, we see that additional materials can be requested to no end. There could be many debates on the determination of sufficient information, and that staff could deem a proposal as premature for pre-consultation. And for fairness, we would request that that this would be a reasonable ask, and that there be a standard list for pre-consultation materials rather than going into a never-ending loop of additional information. Secondly, once you're in pre-consultation, there could be multiple meetings pertaining to development, and each individual application, even if they are related to the same development, would require its own pre-consultation process, which it's kind of a lot of duplication on that side. And then thirdly, staff would have the discretion to tell you when the pre-consultation process is finished. So, that means that we could be there indefinitely until, I don't know what would happen before you get to the end of the process. And so looking at a time frame for that would be definitely beneficial. And we also noticed that there's another problem where if your application is you're in pre-consultation and you're deemed to be inactive, perhaps you're trying to deal with an issue, you would be it would be to the staff's discretion to close a pre-consultation process. So that would kind of set you right back to the beginning. And then also to make kind of
Ms. Boudreaux, I'll give you a few more minutes.
Okay, just one more point. And to sum up the information here, what would happen here is that we know that every matter is described above must be completed to the satisfaction of the town, and that any issue that has been identified could impact staff's ability to make a decision. That creates an additional ambiguity to the pre-consultation process. So as such, I kindly request council and staff's consideration of my deputation prior to making a decision to approve the at a later time the proposed official plan amendment, pre-consultation bylaw, and the delegation of authority bylaw. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Are there any questions for Ms. Boudreaux? Sorry, my mic was not on there. Thank you for your comments. Your information has been recorded and will be included in the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, we'll now continue with the next center.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. We have Victor Ortiz from Delbrook Group.
Thank you, sir. Ortiz being online, clerk, Madam Clerk.
Yes, we promoted him. So we're just waiting for him to connect. Okay, apparently he's gone. So now we will move to Ellen Ferris, and we'll keep an eye out to see if he signs in again. And Ellen Ferris is from MHBC.
Go.
Ms. Ferris, you have the floor. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Gordon and members of council, and thank you for the opportunity to speak and provide comments here this evening. My name is Ellen Ferris, and I am a registered professional planner and an associate with MHBC. I'm here tonight on behalf of Pratt Homes, who is a 6th-generation local community builder within Simcoe County. Pratt Homes has successfully developed a number of communities within the region, as well as within the town of Midland. So I'll endeavor to keep my comments brief this evening, but we do have a number of concerns with the proposed OPA and are requesting that the town defer any consideration of the OPA until such time as it can be reevaluated in the context of a number of items, including recent provincial changes enacted through Bill 23, being the More Homes Built Faster Act, as well as the outcomes of the town's current development approval process review, which is being undertaken currently as we understand it, as well as comments received from the public and stakeholders. So in short, it's our view that the proposed OPA needs to be rethought and revised. As proposed, we are concerned that the OPA will result in inefficiencies and significant approval delays, which will further slow the delivery of housing and result in increased costs, many of which will be downloaded to the end user, being purchasers of homes. So overall, the approach as proposed is inconsistent with recent provincial direction and planning policy, being to deliver new housing in a faster and more efficient manner. I would like to also note that we did submit written comments earlier today, which provide additional details and specifics around what some of our concerns are with the OPA as proposed. And we'd be more than happy, myself and my colleague who authored the comments with me, as well as Pratt Homes, I'm sure, to discuss the comments in further detail with the town, if that would be helpful. So that is my brief synopsis of the comments, and thank you again for your time this evening.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for? Seeing none, thank you very much. Is Mr. Ortiz available? You're not chatting. Okay, so what we'll do is hopefully you can submit his material in written form to the town for the planners. So we'll leave it as that. So I'd just like to say thank you very much through the audience and to our virtual people online for their comments. I believe our planning department has recorded all the information we've included into the report. With that, I've got a motion moved by Councillor East, seconded by Councillor Downer. The staff report CSR 2022-72 statutory public meeting town initiated official plan amendment responding to the Planning Act changes Bill 109, the More Homes for Everyone Act 2022, and Bill 13, the Supporting People and Business Act dated December 7, 2022 be received, and that all agency and public comments be referred to staff for further report regarding the disposition of this matter. Council, ask for, are you in favor of this? Any opposed? That's carried. This concludes the public meeting. And I'd like to thank everyone that attended this evening, and for those that came on virtually for this important amendment that the town will be working on. I look forward to reading the report from the planning department. Thank you. We will continue with the committee of the whole with our next item. It's called presentations, and there is none this evening. So we will move on to the Integrity Commissioner recommendation report, and there is no report this evening. So we will move on to number 15. There are no deputations or petitions this evening. And also number 16, committee local board delegation or memo. There is none. And we will move now to item 17. This is reports and other items withdrawn from the consent agenda for council's consideration. Includes presentations by consultants regarding a report under consideration. And this leads us into 17.1, a budget presentation. And this evening we have our Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Barron, who will provide a presentation, and we will receive just as information. Ms. Barron, you have the floor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Good evening, Your Worship, and members of council, as well as members of public in attendance tonight. My name is Lindsay Barron, and I am the CFO for the town. Before we begin tonight's budget presentation, I'd just like to take a quick opportunity to thank a number of staff who were involved in the budget process. I'd like to thank SLT for their guidance and support. I'd like to thank each department managers and their staff for their efforts in gathering information on their specific areas of responsibility and expertise. A special thank you goes out to my team as well, Jolene and Jacqueline, for all their hard work, as well as the rest of the finance team for their support and extra efforts during one of our busiest times of the year. Last but not least, I'd like to thank the CXO team, communications, Angela and Brittany, for taking what I would call a typical finance document and making it something that people want to read. They say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it truly takes an exceptional team to build a responsible budget. Tonight's presentation is designed to be a high-level presentation and contains just a snapshot of the entire budget document. The council review period starts tonight. And with this presentation and the publishing of the document, this process is designed to provide council with more time to review the budget, ask questions, and hear responses before the debate begins. The complete budget document will be posted on the town's website by the end of day tomorrow, and a link will be sent to council. Next slide, please. Our roadmap, Midland Strategic Vision. Midland is a safe, livable, and prosperous community that respects its cultural heritage and celebrates the natural beauty of Georgian Bay. Every project, initiative, and goal contained in the budget is guided by our community strategic plan. The 2018 to 2022 plan serves as that roadmap that will take us from where we are today to where we want to be. As with every new term of council, this council will also have the opportunity to revisit this strategic plan and reconfirm the vision and priorities, reinforcing their commitment to working towards working collaboratively with a community in the first quarter of 2023. Next slide, please. Midland's road to recovery. Finding new ways to work and bring unique services to the community is a critical way to the way we operate. Never has the need for this approach been more apparent. The roadmap to recovery has 10 distinct components that in partnership have the potential to really transform Midland into a prosperous, sustainable, and affordable community. Each of these components was considered in the development of the draft budget. Next slide, please. Several new initiatives and projects are proposed in the budget. These projects will assist the community today while rebuilding the even more vibrant Midland of tomorrow. Some of the key projects are improvements to the service delivery and fee updates for new development, various park enhancements, the sale and development of the Midland Bay Landing property, downtown and attainable housing community improvement plan, new pedestrian crosswalks and upgrades to the transit buses to ensure the service remains accessible for the entire community, replacements and removal of end-of-life infrastructure. Next slide, next slide. One more. Perfect, thank you. Listening to our residents. Staff and council value feedback from the public. Residents know they can always approach their councilor directly, but we also offer 3 methods to our residents to express their thoughts on the budget. The budget survey was open for the month of November. A public meeting is scheduled for January 18th, as well as a budget question and answer period that is scheduled to open next week. The 2023 budget survey was a success, and I'd like to thank the over 300 respondents who participated in the survey. The results of the survey will be published in the budget document. To highlight a few, here is what we heard from our residents and businesses on some topics. The quality of life score was 82%, I'm gonna read that again. The quality of life score on the 2023 budget survey was 82%. 82% of our respondents said quality of life was good or better. The top 3 categories noted as the most important issues facing Midland were economy, community safety, and social and health. When asked what option the town would consider in balancing the budget, the most favorable option was to increase existing and introduce new user fees. When asked to indicate their preferred level of service for town services, respondents generally preferred that service levels be maintained. Next slide, please. Important dates. As I mentioned, the question period will begin at next week. And so at that time, we ask that a list of questions be submitted to the email budget@midland.ca. And staff will compile those questions and prepare responses weekly in order to make sure that responses are prepared and that they are sent out timely, as well as making every effort to make sure that all of the questions are answered, and that council also gets a copy of those answers as well. On January 18th, we will open the floor for a public meeting where members of the public can express their thoughts on the budget. And then finally, budget deliberations will begin on January 24th. We've set aside 3 days to deliberate the budget, which will also include the presentations from our various agencies, boards, and commissions, with the objective of reaching budget approval by January 26th. Next slide, please. Your taxes. While the town provides numerous critical services that affect your everyday life, we receive a small portion of the total taxes you pay each year compared to other levels of government. Regardless, we strive to create a community that is an affordable place to live, work, and play. We believe that every dollar you provide is an investment to make sure you enjoy all that Midland has to offer. We do our best to maintain current services, provide new services, and minimize taxes. We frequently review our services to ensure they continue to provide value to our community. From every property tax dollar we collect, 57 cents goes towards town administered services. The rest goes to the various agencies, boards, and commissions, police, county, and the province of Ontario. Next slide, please. The town's budget presented to you this evening achieves a 3.83% tax increase over 2022. Accounting for service level change requests, agencies, boards, and commissions, and the sustainable capital levy, the total increase to the town rate is 4.93%. The table provided also includes the blended rate. The blended rate adds the impact of property taxes for the County of Simcoe and the Board of Education. The all-in blended rate would be 4.19% based on our current assumptions for the county and the school. This all-in rate equates to an increase of $5.33 per month or $64 per year per $100,000 of property assessment. Also to note, the table breaks out the impact of some of the decisions made by the previous term of council. These decisions and others are shown on the next slide as past decisions. These decisions, along with increases related to existing contracts, services, increases in market demand and inflationary pressures, increased investment in the renewal and replacement of infrastructure, and increases related to community initiative support make up our base budget. Additional details on these changes are included in the budget document. Can you go back one? It's right back. No. Sorry about that. Just back to this slide. So I also wanted to just talk about the council and committee requests. So there is a line on that table that talks about council and committee requests. With the start of the new term, we wanted to give this council the opportunity to submit their requests for the 2023 budget. After tonight's presentation, council will receive a copy of this updated request form. Staff asks that all forms are returned to us by January 5th to allow us time to determine the value and or impacts of these requests and include such requests in the draft budget for our January deliberations. The Active Transportation Committee did submit 2 capital requests for council's consideration, which you will find in the budget document. As these requests are of a capital nature and funded from our reserves, they're not shown on this schedule. Agencies, boards, and commissions. The town is partnered with a number of agencies, boards, and commissions for the provision of certain services. These budget requests will require a net increase of $104,000 to the tax levy. Preliminary budget submissions from the ABCs are listed here. Council will have the opportunity to ask representatives from the ABCs during our budget deliberations about their budget ask. Lastly, on this table, you'll find the capital sustainability reserve. Sustainable capital levy. It goes into the sustainable capital reserve. Implemented as part of the 2019 budget, the sustainable capital levy was intended to be a 1% annual levy to support the replacement, renewal, and rehabilitation of tax-funded municipal infrastructure. The plan has been inconsistently applied over the years for various reasons, and the town is now playing catch-up. More on this reserve and the necessity to reinforce our reserve capacity is included in the budget document and later in this presentation. Consideration for tax levy reduction. From the infographic, you can see that staff has delivered a budget well below inflation. With that said, council has several service level change requests to consider and therefore may wish to have staff investigate further adjustments to the draft budget. In broad terms, in order to reduce this rate, presented to council, council could consider options such as reduce or eliminate services or programs, increase or establish new user fees, examine requests from ABCs and other community organizations that the town funds provides annual funding to. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Perfect, thank you. Forecasted tax rate increases. This table shows a high-level estimate of potential tax rate changes resulting from decisions in prior years and the decisions facing council in the 2023 budget. The amounts reflect the town's proportion of the tax rate only, therefore not the blended rate. The forecast presented builds on the 2023 budget, including all service level change requests and the addition of the 1% sustainable capital reserve levy. Sorry. If this type of growth included in years 2025 and 2026 of about 100 to 150 homes per year extends beyond the forecast period, the town's tax rate would begin to level off or even decline. This assumes that the annual budget increases are kept below growth targets and that a significant shift does not take place between residential and non-residential assessment. Next slide, please. The 2023 budget also includes a capital plan that totals $13.1 million. This chart presents the 2023 capital budget and is broken down by major asset type. A full listing of the projects can be found in the capital plan 2023 section of this document. As you can see, we are planning to undertake work on major infrastructure such as roads and facility improvements, as well as replace end-of-life vehicles and equipment. Taken together, these projects or purchases make up more than 75% of the 2023 capital plan. Next slide, please. The second pie chart shows the breakdown of the 2023 capital funding. With the exception of grants, the town has two options for funding the capital plan: reserves or debt. The town does not have sufficient discretionary reserves to fund the capital plan, and therefore is using some internal and external financing to cover the shortfall. Next slide, please. This is a graph of the 10-year capital plan. So for 2023, the 10-year capital plan consists of a 1-year capital budget, 2023, plus 9 years of a capital forecast. Master plans combined with the knowledge and expertise of staff have allowed us to prepare a capital forecast to support growth and address the replacement, renewal, and rehabilitation needs of existing infrastructure. Some of the larger projects that are included in this 10-year plan are Yonge Street upgrades, William Street cross-section upgrades, Dominion Street reconstruction, pump station upgrades, East Pressure Zone tank, which is a $10 million project, new pressure zone and booster pump station. There are also a number of projects that were initiated in 2022 that are in progress. These include Midland Point Road, new fine bubble aeration, headworks upgrade, and again, the East Pressure Tank Zone. It's not counted twice in the budget, I promise. The town does not have sufficient reserves to fund these projects directly. As a result, debt financing is a significant component of the 10-year plan. Next slide, please. This graph shows a 10-year forecast for the town's consolidated reserves. There are 3 lines presented. The yellow line is our obligatory reserves. So that would include our development charges, grants that have restrictions, federal gas tax. The light blue line is our discretionary reserves. So those are our capital reserves that are designed for, again, the replacement, renewal, rehabilitation of our infrastructure. The purple or dark blue line, whatever you want to call it, that's our MPUC reserve. As shown, the town's reserves are in a positive position over the 10 years. However, this is due to some key assumptions, including Midland Bay Landing lands will be sold, phase 1, 2023, phase 2, 2032. External debt financing is utilized when necessary and appropriate for projects. The MPUC Legacy Fund will be held in perpetuity, which is $10.5 million plus adjusted for inflation. Phased-in increases to our capital reserves will be maintained based on our projected 10-year capital needs. An additional 1% sustainable capital levy will be included in years 2023 to 2027. And finally, $3.9 million in net proceeds from the disposition of various properties will be realized over the term of this council. This reserve forecast presents a sustainable path. However, the forecast is highly sensitive to changes in assumptions. Unanticipated challenges, such as the availability of affordable external financing, reductions to reserve contributions, economic conditions such as slow growth or escalating costs, unforeseen infrastructure emergencies, etc., could all result in adverse outcomes and a reversal of this financial outlook. Next slide, please. This graph expands on the previous graph and shows how our discretionary capital reserves can recover and begin to meet our reserve target over the 10-year period if we follow those above assumptions. If any of the above assumptions are not met or are significantly delayed, the graph will look much different. The complete budget document provides various scenarios to demonstrate this. Next slide, please. The 10-year capital plan does have a significant component of debt financing, as mentioned. This form of long-term financing is very useful and a necessary tool that will allow the town to spread the cost of infrastructure over time, thereby reducing the town's burden on reserves, thereby reducing the burden on the town's reserves. High value, long-lived assets have been targeted for external debt financing over the 10 years. Many of these projects will require multiple years to complete. Municipal borrowing is constrained by our annual repayment limit, ARL. And this is prescribed by the province. The ARL is a measure developed by the province to limit the amount of debt that municipalities can take on. Next slide, please. This chart provides a 10-year forecast of estimated annual debt payments compared to the 25% ARL limit imposed by the province. Many municipalities set a much lower ARL as a best practice. A secondary, more conservative 20% line has also been included for reference. As you can see, the town should have adequate debt capacity over the forecast period. However, before committing to debt financing, we will need to consider factors such as affordability for tax and ratepayers, prevailing interest rates, and the long-term sustainability of the ultimate funding source. Next slide, please. And finally, water and wastewater. These are services that are funded by user rates, not the tax rate, which is why I put them at the end of the presentation. Water and wastewater, the production and distribution of safe drinking water and the collection and processing of wastewater requires compliance with significant provincially mandated performance standards to ensure the safety of humans and the environment. There are hundreds of kilometers of pipes, wells, numerous wells, pumps, and treatment facilities involved in providing these services. These are expensive to maintain. The annual operating cost to provide water and wastewater is approximately $7 million. And again, it's funded from user rates, not the tax rate. The proposed user rate increases for 2023 are 5% for water and 4% for wastewater. The majority of these increases is to fund, again, the replacement of the infrastructure needed to deliver these services. The increase for the typical user in 2023 is 43 cents and 39 cents per week for water and wastewater, respectively. Next slide, please. This last slide is just to recap the key dates for the budget. Again, starting December 13th through to January 18th, council and the public can submit questions to budget@midland.ca and staff will provide responses. Our new budget analyst will be coordinating the receipt of questions from councillors, the media, and the public. Please use the email address noted on the slide to submit your questions. On January 18th, we will open the floor for a public meeting where members of the public can express their thoughts about the budget. And again, finally, budget deliberations will take place beginning on January 24th. 3 days are scheduled, again, with the objective of reaching an approved budget by January 26th. This concludes the presentation. Thank you for your time this evening. My team and I look forward to working with you through the draft budget.
Thank you very much, Ms. Barron. The Chief Financial Officer has done a lot of work in preparing the introductory for the 2023 budget. There's a lot of information to absorb. At this time, I'm just going to limit the time for a few questions or any clarity that's required for your presentation. So I'll open this up to council. Are there any questions that need to be answered by the CFO? We're good. Thank you very much, Ms. Barron, for your presentation. Oh, I'm sorry, Your Worship. I didn't see it. My back's turned this way. Your Worship.
Thank you very much for this presentation. I'm very happy because the prediction was we were going to be staring down at 5 or 6 right out of the gate. And I'm very happy that the number is a lot lower than that out of the gate. I know we have work to do. I know we haven't seen the ABCs and fully involved yet, and we still haven't seen council submissions and wishes. And of course, we haven't looked at what the options are for whittling that down that you've suggested in the budget package. So I look forward to that, as do many people in the community. So my question was, when does this monster document end up on the town's website for public consumption and contemplation?
Thank you, Your Worship. By end of day tomorrow, the document will be published on our website and council will receive a link to that document. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barron. As we continue with the items, we are now at 17.2, and I'm just going to read, if I get through this with my throat. And this is the staff report, CSR 2022.74, extension of the Ontario Building Code Act service agreement. And this is between Penetanguishene and Midland, dated December the 7th, 2022, be received in that one, that in order to conclude ongoing contract discussions and in consideration of the need of Penetanguishene to provide a building services function, the town of Midland agrees conditionally, subject to approval in whole by the town of Penetanguishene Council, of an extension of the joint services agreement, and is attached under number 1, wherein the town of Midland delivers Ontario Building Code and Building Code Act service to the town of Penetanguishene for a period from January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023, at a cost of $137,050 plus the proportionate cost of insurance associated with the town of Midland vehicle usage, payable in 4 quarterly installments. And these are on March 31st, 2023, June the 30th, 2023, September the 30th, 2023, December the 31st, 2023, and payment in full of any increased costs incurred resulting from wage equity adjustments that apply over the term of the extension within 30 days of presentation of an invoice from the town of Midland, and C, subject to the related provisions of the joint service agreement, which is attached in number 1. 2, that upon confirmation of approval by Penetanguishene Council and on receipt of the executed 2023 Joint Ontario Building Code with the OBC Building Code Act BCA Services Agreement, Penetang Machine and Midland, the town of Midland, mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the agreement, after which it will come into effect on January 1st, 2023. That as a consideration prior to entering any further service delivery agreements for provision of Building Code Act and Ontario Building Code Services, the town of Midland completed the funded 2021 full cost recovery review. It is now underway to determine appropriate fees, adequate funding of the building reserve fund and services levels for, give me 1 second to turn the page, delivering OBC and BCA services in the town of Midland, and further review the relative costs and benefits of entering any agreements to deliver the OBC / BCA services to Penetang Machine, including but not limited to the associated structure cost recoveries, staffing, service levels, and other matters as appropriate to inform related future recommendations. That council directs staff to provide a status report before May 31st, 2023. This basically describes the relationship we have with the town of Penetang Machine and the services that we provide for them. And in discussion, we're looking at the change of the agreement for a fee for service versus the other approach. But I have the deputy clerk that would like to ask the question.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to mention that you did read the motion on the floor, but you didn't say the mover and seconder. So you just have to read who the mover and seconder was, and then you can have discussion.
I'm sorry, this was moved by Councillor Ball and seconded by Councillor McDonald. Now we will open it up for questions. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any questions from council? Councillor Downer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. You sound like Kermit the Frog this evening. I hope your voice gets better. I'm very happy that we're sharing services with Penetang Machine. I hope that this continues. I hope that in the future we share a lot more services with our neighbor. I think it's the right thing to do, and I'm really glad to see this come forward. And it's been going on with fire and building, and I'm sure there are other areas that we could get together and work on, not only with Penetang but with our neighbors Tay and Tiny as well. So that's just food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Downer. We have the mayor.
Sorry, I missed some of that. I wonder if you could read that again for me. Just kidding. Poor Judy's not, you're not gonna be able to talk tomorrow. That was by design, maybe. I just had a comment, to echo Councillor Downer's comments. I think it was actually a platform of several people to try and increase the shared services. We find efficiencies, synergies, way to save money on all of our municipalities as we, either maintain or enhance our service delivery. So it's good to see this in place. Obviously, one of the concerns with any shared service is make sure that neither side gets the short end of the stick, right? That Penetang is not subsidizing a service in Midland, and that Midland residents and ratepayers aren't actually subsidizing a service in Penetang Machine. That everybody gets good value out of that partnership arrangement. So I think that's this. This 1-year extension allows staff on both sides to find that equilibrium, to make sure that everyone understands what the cost of delivering this shared service is, and that everybody pays their fair share on it, so that everyone gets the best value out of it. So I'm encouraged to see this. And I too look for, let's find other ways we can continue to improve our service delivery, reduce our cost and spread over our municipality, and find those efficiencies that when we work together collectively and as North Simcoe municipalities, we can realize. So I do look forward to that report coming back to us.
Thank you, Your Worship. Are there any other further questions from council? Seeing none, I'm not going to read the motion again, but I've read it. I'm going to ask if, for those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed? Seeing none, this is carried. Thank you. As we move on, the next item is the, excuse me. That's the next item, sorry. Pull from the consent. This is the Sled Heads 4 Kids Guinness World Record event. There is a motion for this, and I'm going to read the motion. This is moved by Councillor Meredith, seconded by Councillor Downer. The staff report CSR 2022-62 Sled Heads 4 Kids dated 7/2022 be received, and 1, the formal approval of Sled Heads 4 Kids Guinness World Record event be granted, and 2, that the 24-hour relay for Kids Guinness World Record Challenge be given permission to allow a single snowmobile to run a course on Georgian Bay continuously from 11 a.m. on Thursday, February 16, 2023, through to Friday, February 17, 2023, finishing at approximately 11 a.m. You read the motion, and I believe that you read the report that was provided. I'm going to open this up to the council floor for any questions. I know it was polled, so maybe I'll start with Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Cotton. The reason I asked for this report to be pulled is I had concerns. I'm first of all would like to clarify that the purpose of the donation of this event to the Meadsea Camping Charity is something I certainly do support. I do believe that all children have the right to discover their full potential. But my concerns are basically, snowmobiles are notorious for having a negative impact on the environment. They create an excessive loud noise, which are audible from distances, and alter the winter serenity. Those are my opinions. And the other one was with the environment, even though the report states that there would be no environmental impact. Snowmobilers' waste remain accumulated in the snow. That eventually, in the snow melt, the exhaust mixes into the water, resulting in an increase of pH value on the water surfaces, which can put aquatic animals at risk. I wasn't reassured by the fact that the dB reading would be 71.6 at 50 feet. I don't know, at midnight, that's going to seem a lot louder. But what really I wondered about the conclusion, it says the organizers will be encouraging everyone interested in watching this event to do so safely from home. So why are we sponsoring an event on the bay from Peterson Park to wherever 5 kilometers out? If it's not safe to watch it, why are we supporting it? So those are my concerns, and I won't be supporting the recommendation. Hopefully they'll find another way to support the camping initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Are there any other questions or comments, Councillor Downer?
I'd like to stand in support of it. I think it's a great idea. But I think I hold the world record. I was 16, lost in a snowstorm for a week, and just, by the time I felt Midland, I was pretty tired. But anyway, we won't go there. But I support it 100%. I think it's a great idea. So hats off to them. Good luck to them.
Thank you, Councillor Downer. Anybody else that would like to comment? Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My concern would be the just the noise level at the when everybody's sleeping at night along the waterfront. I know the noise is when you're on the bay, they do magnify quite a bit. Kind of live in that area. I'll have no problem sleeping. My wife can attest to that. But just for the neighbors around there, I just have a little bit of concern about that. But just wanted you guys to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Meredith. Anybody else that would like to? Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you. I see Ms. Mealing online here. Although we haven't asked a specific question of her, I think she's a bit more in tune with maybe what's behind this request, perhaps a connection to the municipality, and might be able to speak to some of the noise mitigation that's being put involved here into place with this event, because that is a live issue, and I think that was discussed early on with staff as a very real concern for the people that live around the bay.
Thank you, Your Worship. Anybody else that would like to comment or make a statement? Councillor Meredith.
Thank you. Are there do we have to increase any insurance on this for, or is it under if the town of Midland insurance for this?
I want the staff respond to that.
Or is there legalities around it?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Meredith, it's the third-party events insurance that's required for this event.
Okay, thank you. And there's no legal ramifications to the town of Midland if something were to happen at this event?
The third-party event will list the town of Midland as an additional insured on their policy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any, yes, we have Councillor East.
Thank you, Jack. Just a thought with skidoos, not all of them have cans on them, so a lot of them actually are pretty quiet. And I don't think that my understanding of it is the guy's going to be racing around the whole time. I think he's just going to be constantly running that sled. So if the sleds don't have cans on them, then they're actually can be pretty quiet. Plus, it gives an opportunity to put us on the map and let somebody chase their dreams, maybe. So just food for thought on letting somebody have a little bit of fun. One night of even a little bit of noise is going to be the end of the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Rees. Yes, I have one of our staff members would like to comment.
Through you to council. I just want to clarify, this is one snowmobile that is a non-modified snowmobile. So it's not a raced machine. It is just a standard snowmobile that you purchase on the market. So it's unmodified, and it's only a single snowmobile that is doing this event. So it's not a number of snowmobiles. It's only one going in a circle for 24 hours to see if they can beat this record. This record was achieved in Muskokas a couple years ago, and it's kind of this group wants to kind of challenge their buddies in the neighboring municipalities. So And our understanding is in that event, there is no concerns raised by the community.
Thank you for that information. Anybody else? Yes, we have Councillor.
I just wanted to say that I think that you raised a lot of good points about being able to have the environmental effect, the noise, and I think that they've been very, very conscious of that. And to speak to what you were saying, is that definitely you have one snowmobile, it's unmodified. They've taken all the environmental considerations into effect. And I think that it's a great cause, and what Councillor East was saying, putting us on the map, I'm all for community engagement, and I appreciate the effort that they put forward, and I will be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. Are there any further questions? Councillor McDonald.
Just to follow up on my last comment, can anybody explain to me why they were recommending watching it, not like watching it virtually and not going to the bay to watch it? Why is it a safety concern?
Staff members respond to that, please.
Yeah, clearly, you know, residents walking out on the ice to witness this. This snowmobile will be going fairly fast around a track, so they certainly don't want anyone on the ice that might be injured. It's also overnight, so they don't want to provide crowd control. They don't want to provide you know, security services that might be required if there was going to be a large crowd. But certainly our event policy, and I see Karen put her hand up there, can add to it regarding our policies.
So I just wanted to add that this will be live streamed as well. So if people wanted to watch from the safety of their home or the comfort of their home in the middle of winter time, they have that option as well.
Thank you. Are there any further questions regarding this item? Seeing none, I'm going to call for a vote. Those in favor, please raise your hands. Those opposed? The motion has been carried. Thank you. We're now moving to item 18, notice of motion. Are there any notice of motion from staff or for council? Councillor Downer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have a notice of motion for the next meeting regarding speed limits within the town of Midland. I'm not sure whether it's in the transportation report or not, but I would like to see the speed limits reduced to 40 kilometers an hour on residential streets with the main arterials left at 50 kilometers an hour. And we're bringing that motion to the next council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I believe staff has recorded that information for request, so we'll see how that emerges. Are there any other notices to be given? Yes, Councillor Meredith.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd like to bring up the, I'm not sure what bylaw it is or the number it's tagged to, but the deputation motion, the criteria to speak in front of council. I'd like to bring that up for review.
Thank you, Councillor Meredith. Yes, again, the clerk, please, to respond.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just to clarify, are you looking to amend the procedure bylaw?
Correct.
Okay.
Like the actual bylaw that states the parameters on what you qualify to speak in front of council?
Just the deputation section.
The deputation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any further comments or no? Seeing none, we will now move on to item number 19 is general announcements. Is there anybody on council that would like to share information regarding any interest? Yes, Your Worship.
This is the feel good section, or it's supposed to be the feel good section where you get to share, you know, neat stuff or announcements about what's going on in the community. I've got one here. This is stemming from last council's decision to offer free transit for Midland seniors beginning January 2nd, 2023. And Midland seniors in our world are 65 plus. And this is just laying out some parameters. We'll be putting this on the town website and doing some promotion of it, but you get it here first tonight. So the cards, you know, the free transit card can be obtained at the Midland Municipal Office only, not the library or the Sports and Rec Center. So this office here only. Registration week is December 19th to December 23rd. And then of course we're closed for the holidays, and it resumes again on January 3rd. So if you want to be an early adopter, come on into the town hall here between December 19th and the 23rd. You'll need to bring photo ID with proof of age and residency. We'll need your license plate information or license plates if you have more than one vehicle, because we need to register you digitally for the free harbor parking. New seniors cards will be issued with their photo and name. And any refunds on previously purchased preloaded cards or rides for Midland seniors will be available at the town hall starting January 9th, 2023. And that will run until March 31st. So there'll be that window of time to refund any preloaded cards. And this is shared for Jim Reicheld, who's our fleet and facilities and assets supervisor. And the second one is Huronia Players is launching. I mean, Huronia Players does all kinds of great entertainment at the Cultural Center, but they have a new play that's launching about a stag and doe. And if you follow Huronia Players either on their social media or on their website, you can see a bit more of it. And they had me participate in a funny promo video where I got to play the mayor. So it was a stretch for me. And at any rate, if you get a chance to see this goofy little video, it'll give you a taste of what this play is all about. But just to remind you to avail yourself of this wonderful talent we have at the Midland Cultural Center, and it appeals to all ages, all, you know, levels of education, all depending what you find funny or don't find funny. I think their productions will appeal to just about anybody young and old. So if you haven't had a chance yet to check out Huronia Players, a little plug for them today in the announcement section. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Are there any other announcements? Councilor Ball.
I just wanted to let you know that we have a French conversation on Fridays and we go to MCC. There's no coffee yet, but just wanted to, we have to bring our own coffee. Okay, so it's a very, it's a group of people and it's different. Some people are very French and other people are not, but anybody can come. So I just thought I'd.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further announcements? No, seeing none, thank you very much. I have a motion to close the committee of the whole and to resume former council session. And I'd like to thank the council for putting up with my Kermit the Frog voice. And I was going to sing Rainbow Connection, but I don't think it would go over pretty good. But anyway, I do have a motion moved by Councillor Ball, seconded by Councillor Prost, that the committee of the whole rise and report. All in favor? Those opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. Your Worship, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you slugging through there. We couldn't have given you more to read, I think, if we tried. It's almost a chapter of War and Peace. All right, so I now have a motion moved by Councillor Downer, seconded by Councillor Ball, that the recommendations of the Committee of the Whole for the meeting of December 7, 2022 be adopted as resolutions of council. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. All right, we're now at the section 22, motions for which notice was given. And we do have a motion that was filed in due process and is on this evening's agenda, 22.1. It was moved by Councillor Meredith, and it needs a seconder to get to the floor. Would anyone like to second that motion? Or would you like me to read the motion? So you know what you're seconding. Why don't I read the motion? The council implement a hiring freeze for any new positions and any current positions that may become vacant until after the regular council meeting scheduled for February 8th, 2023. So that is the motion, and we need a seconder to get on the floor to have discussion. Seconded by Councillor Ball. Thank you very much. Councillor Meredith.
Thank you, Your Worship. So it's pretty self-evident that I'm putting this motion for a hiring freeze just to going through the budget, that we're not met with any surprises. And since we've been sworn in, I've been seeing more more people being hired to council. So just basically, when I watched the budget deliberations last year, I guess the hirees or the new hirees in the 2022 year, and there was quite a few of them. They weren't really outlined in the budget, and I know now that it's not itemized clearly. So with that being said, and we're going into the budget deliberations, I'd like to freeze all hiring so we can hopefully get the tax rate at a good point where we can carry on in 2023 and actually know exactly where we stand with our employees and so forth. So that's why I requested the motion.
Councillor Downer, follow up.
Thank you, Your Worship. I can't support this motion. I have full confidence in our administration that if people have to be hired, they'll be hired, and if people have to be let go, they'll be let go. So I think that's a job for our administration to administer. So therefore, I will not support this motion. Thank you.
Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship and members of council. And certainly, I do want to acknowledge what the intent of what the motion is, but I do want to speak to the reason why I think it's absolutely unnecessary and it's problematic. And it's not that certainly any member of our senior leadership team have implemented hiring freezes. Certainly in the public sector, where most of my experience is from, it is a kind of last resort tactic that you would use if your budget is being threatened. And that certainly isn't the case in Midland. There is a report that wasn't discussed tonight, 10.4.12, which tells you what our 2021 year-end surplus was. $1.6 million surplus was achieved in 2021. In the prior year, $2 million of surplus was achieved by our staff over those last two budget years. So staffing isn't the problem, staffing is the solution, certainly from my perspective. What we're seeing in the public sector in any service industry is a very competitive market to try and find people to work in the service industry. What we've done in the last two budgets, instead of implementing a hiring freeze, we've committed to something called wage gapping. And in essence, what we've done is our staff have committed to spacing out the hiring of people over the year. That's why you're seeing some hires remain at the end of this year, because we did not hire them at the front of the year. And that allows you to deliver cost savings to the organization. We committed $400,000 in each of the last two budget years by our staff. So $800,000 of savings by our staff, by managing our staffing at the staffing levels. I don't think you'll find that kind of commitment in any other municipal budget. It was done in Midland because we understand the circumstance. Our staffing levels of full-time staff is at the same level as it was 10 years ago. We don't have an exorbitant number of people relative to what's been done in the past, but we have more to do, and we're working smarter, using technology better, but it's very difficult to find people. And that's why we don't want to restrict ourselves from getting those people when they're available, especially when you are delivering essential services like we are. We have to replace people who are providing those services that keep our people safe. And you know all the services that we provide. So it is quite problematic from a practical standpoint to restrict that. We have to deliver the services that we've been given the budget to deliver. And we do that by delivering surpluses. So not only do we deliver the services, we deliver savings in doing it. The time to have that discussion, as Councillor Meredith indicated, is at budget time. So in January, we can have a discussion about what services you want this town to deliver. And if there is a change in service levels, we will take the appropriate action to make sure that the right staffing levels are put in place to do that. But certainly implementing a staffing freeze at this time, I don't think is necessary. We've demonstrated, obviously, with our staff that we are very responsible in managing our budget. We've delivered year-over-year surplus, which is really important to the town and its recovery. But we need those people to continue that recovery, and we need a few more of them. So I'd certainly request that you not entertain this at this time. I think at the budget time, that is the time when we should be making those types of evaluations.
Councillor Ball.
I'm just wondering if you are currently interviewing for positions that you feel need to be filled in this 1 month period before budget.
Yeah, if I may, yes, we are. In fact, people are watching this meeting tonight in order to make offers for a transit operator job, as an example. So there are practical positions that are open. However, at any given day, and we see this, someone can go off because of sickness. There could be an injury, there could be disability, there could be a termination that happens. We need to replace those people. It's as simple as that. And quite frankly, the end of the year is one of our busiest times of the year to operate all those services. Getting this budget going, listening to the budget debates, implementing all the legislative changes that you heard tonight in many of our sessions. Managing all that takes time, but delivering the services over the holiday period isn't something that stops. We don't have a closed for renovation sign. We're open all the time, and we need people to do that type of service. So yes, we are continuing to pursue those things. We're obviously waiting on direction of council to finish off that, but I think it's extremely important that we continue to fill those few positions.
Sorry about that, press the wrong button. Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Meredith.
Thank you very much. I think one of the things we need to look at is the plans for the human resources, and I think that's an issue that needs to be looked at right away, just in terms of analyzing the full complements in different departments and who's doing what for service delivery levels. So there's a combination of things to be looked at for factual information. We don't have a succession plan. Two, we need to analyze the org chart to ensure that there's clarity in terms of what we're doing in service delivery. If we were to look at putting hold on a hiring freeze, I would support that in the notion that we move forward quickly, even if it's in budget time, because that's an important part of the level of service that we provide. And I think the fact that if we don't move forward with this, we're going to be looking into next year. But we need to act quickly, just ensuring that we're having the right sizing plus the right service delivery plus the level of I guess benefits for those that are on staff. And I think that needs to be looked at. So I would support Councillor Meredith's motion. Thank you.
Councillor East.
So I want to support my friend Bill, but my question is if we did implement a hiring freeze, what if we lost 3 or 4 of our plow drivers and we don't have the ability to replace them right away? The thing is that it's not just the upper tiers that we're worried about, it's the grunt work workers. And the thing is that if we lost 2 or 3 plow drivers or whatever, and we can't replace them, Midland is going to hate us in a snowstorm. The thing is that I can appreciate the budget, right? But my worry is service could be hurt in a case of an emergency snowstorm, especially this time of year. You know, we lose a couple guys to COVID, our roads aren't getting plowed because we can't hire somebody. So it's just, I want to support you, but you got to look at our decisions how are they going to affect the bigger picture? And there's not just the upper tiers that are going to get hurt, right? It's the small guys that we count on. So just food for thought. Thank you.
Councillor Meredith.
Yeah, I certainly get that, and I don't want to put anybody in jeopardy, especially our citizens. We could put a little, amendments to this, tweak it a bit. Maybe it's just new positions, current positions. If we're in an emergency, fulfill. Sure, I'm up for that. We've been, as we said, we've been in a surplus for the last 2 years. We're $1 million plus this year, 2 million last. So I question when it comes to budget time on when the departments come to us with a budget, how inflated is that budget? Is because we have the, or is it because we have the technology on our, that we've been, discussed in orientation of the fleet and, all this, is this where all the savings is of $1 million, or are the budgets inflated? So these are the questions that I have. Hiring new people. I've been here all my life. This isn't the same service level as it was 10 years ago. We have more staff now than ever. Things are more complex with everything that's happening. I understand that. But our sign says 17,500 people, or I think it's 17,000 still. So for 500 more people, it doesn't make sense. And going around, knocking on doors, I heard it over and over again. And from outside as a resident looking in, and these are the questions that a lot of residents had. And we don't want to take down the service level for sure, or bring it down. But we are highly taxed, and we have to look for ways to control those areas. And if we can combine some or merge some departments, I'm not sure, but there are that org chart. If we get it more defined, we did get it did come through the email, but it wasn't very clear on what every department's job is and what they control. So that's why I put the hiring freeze on. There was I believe an upper tier position that we were trying to fill, and do we need that filled? So this is why I instituted this, put forward this hiring freeze. And if we have to make a little change to see, what, we don't leave ourselves short from a driver or a transit driver, we can tweak this to make that happen. Not a problem. Thank you.
Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a point of clarity, because I do want to be factual here. We do not have significantly more people than 2012. We have probably less people than were employed in 2012. We have that data. The other fact is, we went to our staff in those last two budgets with a budget to deliver services. We could have spent every dollar in that budget, and that was authorized. Because the staff agreed to implement staffing over a time frame that would allow savings to occur. They committed those savings to staff. They in effect implemented their own kind of hiring freeze. $400,000 each of those 2 years, $800,000 in savings. And now we want to come to them at the end of the year and hit them again. I honestly don't think that's fair. I think that's a discussion that needs to be done at the budget time, when you can have a discussion with staff and say, what services are we going to pull back on? If we want to do some analysis on staffing levels, we can do that. We're pretty seasoned people, and we understand efficiencies, and we know what the efficiencies are relative to other municipalities. I can tell you that we are not overstaffed, and I'll be happy to prove that at budget time. In fact, we need more people with the right level of skills. And that is something that we need to do in order to deliver the savings that we have done in the last two budget times. We were fully authorized to spend every dollar, and our staff did not. They delivered over $3 million of savings. For all the reasons that you're saying, we need to help the town. And you saw in the budget presentation of the progress that is being made to fix the tax situation. The tax situation wasn't created because of the people. Tax situation is being helped because of the people. There's a lot of reasons why we're in the tax situation we are. And we've explained that in the budget again, and we'll get that into the budget again. But I think this is a horrible first motion for this council to bring forward.
Councilor Meredith.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. Campaigning, going around talking to staff, boots on the ground. I'm not going to name names. They've even agreed with me that there was positions, high positions that were not necessary, that people in the past, these positions were high, the higher end of the chain are put in place. And I know you're trying to, and I've seen you, council and staff at prior, meetings last term, saying you got to pay for talent, and I'm not saying you don't have to pay for talent, but we certainly have to control our spending in that area, and this is coming right from the boots on the ground, and that's where most of the information, the truthful information, comes. And I'm not. You say you have savings of over $1 million, $2 million, $3 million over 2 years, but don't tell me that those are inflated budgets. Those are, to pull off $2 million in savings a year. And I'm not saying staff doesn't have a part of that equation. Absolutely. And I've heard some great things tonight, absolutely, from staff and through orientation. And I'm here thinking of the people of Midland. What I pledged to do, and it may not be, in your opinion, the first step for this meeting, but it is in the opinion of our constituents that I bring forward to this meeting. And every meeting, I act on behalf of them, and I am their voice, and a voice that will be heard. So we can argue back and forth about this. It's not a lengthy time. It's till after budget. And once we get through that, let the cards fall where they be. So, but thank you.
Councillor Ball.
Thank you. just want to speak to that one senior level vacant position that you're speaking about, Councilor Meredith. That's one that I would like to pause on. I don't want to eliminate a position from staff. I think that it's very clear that we do need more staff, but I think that that position might not be the most effective. I'm talking about amending the motion that's brought forward to pause just that position. I think that that position could be made into a different position that actually serves the staff members of the town. I think that they're effectively doing that position right now, and that there were other things brought forward that they could use help on, and that's not currently listed in any position. So I would like to pause that one position to reevaluate what it actually can do for the staff members of our town and the people of our town.
Okay, maybe I could just, because what we don't want to do is debate the budget before we debate the budget, right? So dealing with the minutia of what position to fill or not, that is definitely in the purview of what we're going to be talking about in the budget. I guess maybe to make this a bit easier, other than this transit driver, are we looking at a whole bag of new staff that we're looking to hire in the 11th hour, you know, or as it were? Approximately how many new hires are scheduled to occur before the proposed date that Councillor Meredith has on his motion?
There's through you, Your Worship, to the rest of council. There's only a few positions left, but the point that I think we want you to appreciate as council is the risk of delivering services, because things happen, especially over the winter months, where people aren't available, people take other jobs, people reevaluate things, people go on short-term and long-term disability. We've had a couple impacts over the last few weeks because of that in areas. And the notion that a transit driver might be more important than someone else in the organization isn't really valid, because those people need to be supported. They have to get the right PPE. They have to get, you know, pay. There's you know, support that's provided. We have a tremendous number of people that are, you know, the only person available. So the organization structure, you know, that we've put in place is designed to deliver the efficiencies, you know, that have been delivered. It's not because of inflated budgets. The budget was passed by a council and responsibly done and debated, that the costs were put there. If the budget was inflated, that should have been brought down by council. That wasn't the case. We delivered on the budget and we overachieved on those savings. Some of our staff may be disgruntled with the supervision they're getting. That's not unusual. That is not unusual, because we are demanding a lot of our people, I'll be quite honest. And some of them don't like to be supervised. But I'm telling you, they are performing phenomenally. And you've seen that in the numbers that, you know, that are being provided here. So the evidence is very clear that our people are delivering the savings that you all want. To implement a freeze and potentially risk service delivery or risk the safety of residents or our staff, I'm not trying to be alarmist, I'm just telling you that that could occur, is unnecessary in this motion. You have this debate at budget time. And if you want to change the budget by reducing it and changing your service levels, the staffing will be implemented accordingly. That's fundamental in what you do in a budget.
Yeah, I think that's fair critique. And just for transparency for people watching along, I think I made a very similar motion, perhaps once or twice in the last term. However, it wasn't so close to budget time. And just for what it's worth, I understand where Councillor Meredith is coming from, and we are imminently close to having a line by line, super parsed view of the expenses of running this municipality. And given the, you know, what I'm hearing that are real risks, I'm probably disinclined to support this motion only because it's imminent. Like, we are a month away. Tomorrow we get the link to the budget. We are a month away. And I would like to believe that if staff found a suitable candidate for that ED position that remains vacant, that's a very senior position, that, you know, we would have some kind of conversation as a council before, sending out an offer of employment. So I'm pretty sure that's the case. I'll get some confirmation from the CAO. At least that may satisfy Councillor Ball's concern that, we're about to dangle this really big carrot in the last, month of this calendar year. And I believe you had a comment as well, Mr. Campbell.
I just wanted to comment through your mayor, Mr. Mayor, that sometimes there's unintended consequences to decisions like this. One being that we won't be able to apply for any of our grants for students, and we have to make that submission on January 12th. And if there's a hiring freeze in place, we won't be able to apply for any grants for students. And there's other things like that I won't get into tonight, but sometimes there's unintended consequences.
Mr. CAO.
Thank you. If I may, on the ED position, yes, we've decided to pause on that one for now. Again, that's part of our commitment on gapping. We know that this is something that, and Andy is certainly one of them. We've shared that across the leadership team because we have the experience to do that. We are very mindful of the retirement surge that is happening in the public sector and Midland. So we're trying to prepare our staff to be able to perform those roles. So at some point we may need to position that, and that's something we would go to the HR committee to get endorsement on. But at this time, we are gapping that position. We are not advertising for it. We have no intention, certainly in the first quarter, to pursue that at this time.
Councillor Ball.
I just want to say thank you to that. And I hope that was clear that pause for that one position. I want to support you guys in being able to do your job more effectively. And I understood that you were already sharing that responsibility and appreciate that you have taken on that additional responsibility. So I just want to make that clear that I appreciate that. And obviously that'll come. I appreciate that you paused it as well. So thank you.
All right. If there's any further discussion on this, or can we call the question? And all right, recorded vote. We have a recorded vote request, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, you've heard the motion. When I call your name, please say yes or no. Councillor Ball. Sorry. Councillor Jamie Lee Ball. Councillor McDonald. Deputy Mayor Contin.
Yes.
Councillor Prost.
No.
Councillor Downer. Councillor East. Councillor Meredith.
Yes.
Councillor Roberta Bald. And Mayor Gordon.
No.
The motion is defeated 2-7.
All right, thank you. We're really getting the full gamut here tonight, recorded votes and all. So thank you to council for the good discussion on that and for staff for your input. This, I think this is setting the tone for everyone watching on what we're in for this term, which is really good debate, thoughtful motions, thoughtful consideration, and definitely working together to try and work through the issues. And I really look forward to budget working with you guys. I truly do. It's not on the agenda, but because it's going to be fun. All right, next we move into bylaws. We're on the home stretch here, folks. So we have a slew of bylaws that get passed kind of all in one motion. I'll read them out. This is moved by Councillor Ball, seconded by Councillor McDonald, that the following bylaws, bylaw 2022-56, the sale of municipally owned lands at 8869 County Road 93, and bylaw 2022-57, interim tax levy for 2023 and to provide for penalty and interest, bylaw 2022-58, entering into a collective agreement with the Midland Professional Firefighters Association, MPFFA, effective January 1, 2017 to December 31st, 2021, and bylaw 2022-59, entering into a collective agreement with the Midland Professional Firefighters Association, MPFFA, effective January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2024, be passed and enacted. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Next, moved by Councillor Prost, seconded by Councillor Emeritus, that bylaw 2022-60 being a bylaw to adopt the proceedings of the regular council meeting with closed session held December 7th, 2022, be passed and enacted. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. And the most favorite bylaw of the night, moved by Councillor East, seconded by Deputy Mayor Conton, that this regular meeting of council with closed session adjourn at 8:56 p.m. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, council.